Hi, this is the second video in which we're um, building the game of sticks in Python. So we're going to start here at the place where the first video ended. So if you haven't already written the code from the first video, you're going to need to go back and do that first. And if you have written that code, make sure you have that pulled up in the CS50 IDE editor, or some other editor, I suppose, which would be fine, but I'm doing it in the CS50 IDE. So I've highlighted here the tasks that we're going to do. Make that text a little bit bigger, during this video. So first to do is we're going to repeat turns until we're done with the game. If you remember, we left off in the last video with having done one full turn. After we set up so that we can keep repeating turns, then we'll kind of properly end the game. And then I'd like to go back and validate some of the user input. So whenever we ask the user a question, we have to assume nefarious users and assume they're going to enter something that is invalid. And how do we want to handle that? So we as programmers have to be able to handle invalid input. And this last step will be to go back and sort of tidy up the user input piece a little bit. Okay, so let's get started on repeating turns. Now, if we look at the code that we have, I'm going to shrink this back down here. If we look at the code that we had earlier, basically what I'm showing on the screen right here is, oops, let me get this down just a touch. There we go. There's one turn in the code here. We print the sort of turn starting info, we get the player input, and then we update the state variables based on that input. And at the end of the last video, we just went on then and I copy paste like the start of turn info below that to kind of continue the gameplay. You can imagine if we continued on this copy paste route, if I took the rest of the player info, state variables thing, I could just copy paste this right down here. Good, and now that's second turn, and then to do the third turn, we highlight all that stuff. And we can paste that down here as well for the third turn. And you could see this going on as one maybe valid way of doing this. But this definitely will lead to some problems. So what sort of problems do you see with this approach? Why do we need to be a little more efficient about how we handle the turns? Yeah, so it creates problems with things like, well, we don't know how many turns there are going to be. It could be a fast game, people picking up a lot of sticks every time, or it could be a quick game or a slow game in which everybody, each player picks up one stick each time. So we don't know how many turns there are going to be. So that's one problem with copy pasting it. And then secondly, in terms of efficiency of reading the code, if we just have sort of like a long laundry list of instructions to the computer, that's a little bit tricky to read through and understand why all these lines are repeating and what they're intended to do and keep track of like where you are in the game. So it makes it kind of unreadable. Another reason this is not a good approach is what if we wanted to update something about the game, something about the gameplay, like add more players in here, or like I mentioned, we're going to do some user input validation. So we're going to write some code to check that this pickup value is okay. It's a valid value. And so I'd have to copy paste that every time. And every time I copy paste, I introduce a new opportunity to create an error. So I want to not be able to, I want to reduce the risk of creating errors and make it easier to update code in the future by not having to then like copy paste all those updates I make. So there's a number of reasons why it's a bad idea to just kind of copy paste all of our turn code. Instead, we're going to use a loop to basically repeat this turn code over and over for as long as the game is not finished. And let's look at how we're going to do that now. I'm going to actually move this. We're getting into more code here, so I'm going to move this video, slide me way over. Whew, that was fun. And let's just clean up our code here. This is obviously, just like I said, a little hard to read with all this copy pasting stuff. So let's go up, find that. Here's one turn, and I'll stop here. Okay, so those are my tasks right now, and this is the task we're on. And then here's the full extent of the code. Just to review, we have the intro information, we have our state variables, we have our start of turn info, get the player inputs, and then update our state variables. So what's the part of this that we want to repeat? We don't need to repeat this intro info, of course. And we should not repeat this creation of the state variables. That's just something that happens once at the start of the game. We don't want to reset sticks to 21 at the start of every turn and reset the player to player 1 at every turn. So that's not going to be part of what we repeat. That happens just once at the beginning of the game. These lines are the core of the turn, and that's the piece that we want to repeat every time. And we'll use a while loop to do this repeat. First, I'm going to indent. I highlighted all these, and I'm going to hit Tab to indent them all. And then put a while statement at the top. Now, while some condition is true, I want to repeat all of these indented lines that are below it, the while statement. So what's this statement here? What's our sort of check? Like, if this thing is true, then I want to keep playing the game. Yeah, well, the main indicator that we have that the game is still active, we're not done playing, is the stick count, right? How many sticks there are. So sticks is 21, that means we want to keep playing. If sticks is 20, we want to keep playing. 19, keep playing. If sticks is 5, keep playing. 4, keep playing. 3, keep playing. 2, keep playing. 1, we still want somebody to pick up that last stick, so we want to keep playing while sticks is 1. If sticks is 0, then we're done, right? We don't need to keep repeating if sticks is 0. So I'm going to set my condition to while sticks is greater than 0, I want to keep playing the game. So while sticks is greater than 0, and then I have a colon after that, I'm going to repeat everything that's indented here. And now, before I run this code, I just want to throw a print statement here at the end outside of the while loop. So notice I'm indented back over at the main line here. I'm not indented as part of my while loop, so that this print statement runs at the end of the game. So we'll just say end of game for now, and we can update what that says a little bit later. Okay, so I saved, come back over here, and let's rerun our, rerun our game. How many sticks do you, I might have to move myself out of the way here again. Where's a good place to tuck me for now? How about there? Okay. Player 1, it's your turn. 21 sticks. How many sticks? 3. Player 2, good. Hey, so it's looping so far. We got one loop. How many sticks? Let's take 3. So that means when I hit enter, I'm going to expect to see player 1, it's your turn, and there are 15 sticks on the table. That's what I hope to see, right? So let's hit enter, see if that happens. Good. And then just to kind of get through this efficiently, let's just keep taking 3. And at this point, there's 3 sticks left. So sticks is greater than 0. So it's a good thing that it did this. And when I hit 3 now, we're going to have 0 sticks left. And so it's end of game. Good. So far, things are good here. And we've finished this task. Repeat turns until we're done. So that task is done. Our next to do is end the game. Well, I kind of ended the game here already, but let's make it a little fancier, and we can say like who won, that sort of thing. So print a blank line, end the game, do a big arrow, say that's the end. I don't know. Write whatever you want, I suppose. And we'll say who won. So player, let's say the winner is player blank. We'll use F strings here again. And so I have my curly braces with the variable name on the inside if I want to print that. and then I need an F just at the start, before the start of the string there, for it to run properly. Now, I don't really know yet whether this is going to correctly print the winning player, right? We have to noodle this through a little bit. Like, what's the value of player at this point? And is it the player who won that we're printing, or is it the player who just lost that we're printing? I think we could sort of logically noodle it through, but we could also just play the game again and see if it's what we expect. So let's do that. Let's just play the game again and see if the winner is who we're expecting. Let's just do a clear, and then all right. So 3, 3, 3, 3. We're alternating correctly as we expect there. Let's get down to the end. Player 1, it's your turn. There are 3 sticks on the table. How many sticks you take? So let's say player 1 takes 3. Dumb move, right? Because you want to kind of force the other player to go last. So if player 1 takes those 3 sticks, this means player 1 loses the game because they're taking the last stick. So we wanted to say that the winner is player 2, and let's see if that's what it does. That's the end. Winner's player 2. Nice. Good. Why did it switch and do the player 2? It's player 1 was sort of the last player printed here, and it switched to do player 2. Yeah, because part of the turn is before the end of the turn. Actually, the last thing that happens in the turn here is we switch to get ready for the next turn and switch the player. So that's actually really handy for the end of the game here. If it didn't do that, we would want to do that at the end to make sure that we had the winning player correctly indicated here. Good. Hey, let's try to play one more time. And this time do something that's a little bit more like how the game would actually end, just to make sure everything works correctly. So 3 sticks on the table. It's my turn, player 1. I'm going to take 2 to force the other player to take the last one. So now player 1, it's your turn. 1 sticks. We could fix that probably. 1 sticks on the table. How many sticks? I have to take 1. So I take 1, and player 1 is the winner. Good. That's what we wanted it to say. Okay, so we've ended the game now. We'll say that's done. Last thing we have to do is validate the user input. Let's do that in another video. So I'm going to cut this video off here, and in the next video we will validate the user input. Maybe we'll even do some things like get this so if that's a number 1, we say there's 1 stick rather than 1 sticks. So we'll pick that up on the next one.